It's another Wunderbar Wednesday. In case you missed the introduction to the show, I'm welcoming you back on the show as we get into the newspaper review. I hope you're ready because we're about to get into those salient matters of national concern. But before I introduce my guest for the morning, all the way from the University of Ghana, we all know this segment is brought to us all by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, if you're a man, I keep saying, don't wait till you're 40. Start checking your prostate now. If you're a woman, know about your fertility status before it's too late. And that is why you ought to make tracks to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, because they're offering screening for both of these for free, absolutely free. You will not pay anything, zilch, nothing. Here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Very easy location. In Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. Also a very popular spot. Then you come back to Takrady. They are in Anaje Estate, in the eastern area of the country. Then there is also Tema Community 22. There's Techiman Hanswa, and there's Isiama Enzima. If you'd like to call them, these are the numbers you can reach them on. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Let's kickstart the news review now with our good friend, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He joins the conversation. Doc, good morning to you.
How are you, my brother?
I am very well. I hope you are well too.
Very well.
All right. I do not know whether yesterday you paid any attention to that event, part of which we covered, having to do with that amalgam of private sector people who spoke to the issues about the Fourth Republic and whether it has delivered at the British Council. But there, former Executive Vice President of Unilever, Yaw Nsako, actually delivered a scathing verdict on Ghana's Fourth Republican experiment. In his paper titled Towards a Mindset Revolution, he made mention of the fact that our Fourth Republic and its democracy was a miracle that led nowhere. You remember everything we had to go through with the PNDC, then the formation of the NDC, with some arm twisting from the international community, some groupings internally pushing for democracy, and then Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, may his soul rest in peace, finally ceding and everything that has happened. And Yaw Nsako questions whether the Fourth Republic has truly delivered on its promises. In fact, he labels our political landscape as a merry-go-round of miracles. What do you make of what Mr. Nsako says? Do you agree with him? And if you don't, why? Hello, Doc? Okay. We'll try to get Doc back to respond to that. But I think that's a general question I'll put to you out there. The Fourth Republic, it was an experiment, but every experiment must have some sort of end in mind. This Fourth Republican experiment, has it delivered the goods, like we'll say in political science? Has it delivered the bacon to the people? Because why do we even elect political parties? The political parties themselves, per our constitution, per their formative rituals, if you like, or constitutions themselves, want to acquire power so they can execute certain things, which supposedly will inure to the benefit of the people. But after how many years of this? 1992 till now, 31 years. Singapore moved from third world to first world within 3 decades. 3 decades. I bleed and I weep for Ghana sometimes. But anyway, we'll try to reconnect with Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, and then when we do, we'll get into those matters with him. But for now, let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. President appoints sanitation minister and 2 others. Frida Prempeh in the mix. I remember one incident in Parliament. I think it was at a vetting. I'll not say exactly what happened, but it was an interesting response from Frida Prempeh back then. Well, now she is a substantive minister. Okay, we'll get into those details. Accra hosts Africa Women Children Conference on August the 2nd. There's also death penalty scrapped. And if you followed proceedings in Parliament, well, that is something that has happened. So we're taking that off our law books, and the worst you can get is a life imprisonment. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? AG to prosecute Adisadel student, and that is also in the mix. Then on the back page, manhunt for Kumasi Boku bus attackers, and then Northern Region benefits from free medical care. All of those stories in the Daily Graphic news paper. I do not know whether we have Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante yet, but if we do, Doc, can you hear me? Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, can you hear me? Okay, I think we've still not got him yet. When we do, we'll cross over and find out what he has to share on those matters we're discussing this morning. So let's start with the death penalty being scrapped. Parliament has passed the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 into law, abolishing the death penalty from the statute books. When assented to by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the new law will amend the Criminal Offences Act 1960, that is Act 29, to change the punishment of death penalty to life imprisonment and to provide for related matters. Now, it was a private member's bill initiated by the National Democratic Congress Member of Parliament for Medina, Francis Xavier Sosu. This will go into the annals, the record books, that he pushed for this. Now, the overarching objective of the new law is to reform the criminal justice system of Ghana to meet the needs of an emerging society and add the country to the League of Nations that have moved, or that has moved away from capital punishment. League, yeah. Now, the Speaker, Alban Kingsford Bagwin, referred to it on the Committee on Constitution, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, which presented its report to the entire House yesterday. Consequently, the bill was put to a voice vote and successfully approved by the House. Other legislators who threw their weight behind the bill were the NDC MP for Akachi South, Bernard Ahiafo, MP for Bolgatanga East, Dr. Dominic Ayene, NDC MP for Builsa South, James Agalaga, MPP, MP for Asante Akim North, and Diapia Kubi, among others, most of them members of the NDC. I support this. And while I feel there are some heinous crimes that require the maximal punishment or penalty, the taking of life, I still have grave concerns when it comes to taking human life. And so for me, I would rather err on the side of caution and give everybody that second chance. Maybe they will not give someone else that they may have killed or something, like we heard from Cletus Avoka, a second chance. But I still feel that we should refrain from taking human life. Plus, within this Fourth Republic, we've not executed anybody. We've put people on death row, but never executed them. So it only made sense from where I sit as a student of the law to let it slide. And I believe, by and large, the members of Parliament saw reason, saw wisdom in that line of thinking. It doesn't mean that you can commit a crime and get away with it. Life imprisonment. I mean, imagine that. Your entire life, the rest of your life in incarceration. I feel that should be punishment enough. So for me, this is a step in the right direction. It's a step forward, legally speaking. But then AG to prosecute Adisadel student. From the information I gather, the Attorney General himself is a former student of Adisadel School. Anyway, let's get to that story on page 16. In fact, two stories I'll take from page 16 and then add page 26 as well. So let's get there, page 16. And if you're not on the live stream, or if you're streaming and your friends aren't streaming, you might as well share the link with them. So the police have initiated investigations for possible prosecution in a case in which a student of Adisadel College is seen bullying a fellow student in a viral video. The action of the police is on the advice of the issue of the office of the Attorney General after the issue became public. Now, the public yesterday visited the school premises as part of the investigation with a principal state attorney from the Office of the Attorney General, Vincent Nyineku, who is in charge of the Central Region. The incident, which happened at a dormitory at Kwaku House, left one of the students, Kelvin Ofori, who was attacked by a taller student with a swollen cheek. The taller and older student, identified only as Bobby, was seen in the viral video holding the neck of his victim from behind as though to strangulate him in the presence of other students who shouted cautionary remarks. As the victim gasped for breath and tried to free himself from his attacker, the taller student pushed him towards a bunk bed and violently hit his face against the bed. It makes for gory watching, trust me. At that moment, Bobby was seen pushing Ofori away from him. The victim examined his face and felt blood on a badly swollen cheek. Now, the housemaster has been asked to step aside as investigations continue and the rest. But for the life of me, and yes, we've heard from the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service, which have summoned the school authorities, the students involved and their parents to Accra for further briefing. But I'm asking myself, why are there punitive measures for the boy who is the victim, who supposedly did not report this? Just because he didn't report it, I mean, let's be realistic. I was in the boarding house in the 90s. And with some of these things, there were some atrocities committed against Form 1 students and even sometimes Form 2 students. You would ask yourself, it was a very slippery slope, a fine line you would be walking. Because there were certain things that were done, hitting people with bamboo. I remember St. Augustine's house in Bishop Herman. I jumped from the top of the stairs to the bottom because some personality was chasing me with a bamboo, huge one. The spanking, Shango, and the rest, I wouldn't mention names, but nicknames will suffice. We went through that process. I'm not saying it is right, but I'm saying that in most of those instances, if you spoke up, unless it was excessive, okay? If you spoke up about some of them, you would be a victim throughout the period you would be in school. You would be victimized. So we shouldn't victimize the victim. There are reasons, especially in boys' schools, that sometimes they will just man up, toughen up, develop a thick skin, and take some of this. This, of course, I'm not justifying this. This is excessive. It is over the board. But I'm saying that for most incidents, you say it and you are sort of ostracized. You become a pariah in your own, institution. Even sometimes your classmates would, So how can we then turn on the victim and victimize him? It doesn't make any sense to me. The fact that he didn't report it, wow. And I saw someone post on Twitter, some sort of prominent figure, that we should abolish the boarding system on the back of something like this. I don't know what thinking cap the person is using, or the thought process the person is using, that simply because of this incident or on the back of bullying in schools, where doesn't it happen? In the West, it happens. You may not follow those stories, but they do come. They do arise. Even in the universities, with some of these cult groupings in the West, I'm talking about the Ivy League institutions. Do you know the things they do there? So it's a fine line, but the boarding system also allows for that integration, that sense of, whether it's Commonwealth Hall, my former hall at the University of Ghana, or St. Augustine's Hall, Etumante Hall, House 4 in Bishop Herman, there is a bond that is formed. And sometimes way after school, deep into life, you maintain those bonds. I don't know whether you get that with the day system. So that is my take on this matter. I don't feel the victim should be victimized even further. But then there is this issue. President appoints sanitation minister and two others. Police refer house helps theft docket to AG. Let me quickly get into that one. So the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has appointed the Minister of State at the presidency, Frida Prempeh, as the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources. Now, between 2017 and 2020, she was the Deputy Minister of Works and Housing and also the Member of Parliament for Tano North in the Ashanti region. Ms. Prempeh takes over from Cecilia Abnadapa, who resigned from her position on Saturday, July the 22nd, 2023. The resignation was accepted by the president the very same day. Now, President Akufo-Addo, in consultation with the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration and Roads and Highways, also appointed the Deputy Minister of Roads and Highways and MP for Efija Sechere East, Mavis Nkansa-Bwedu, as Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, and also moved the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration and MP for Tatale Sanguli, Thomas Mbomba, to the position of Deputy Minister of, let me just get that, because there was a switch. It was just a switch. So of Roads and Highways. So Foreign Affairs to Roads and Highways to Foreign Affairs. That's what happened. On page 17, let's conduct clean campaign. That's according to Dr. Usu Efriye Akoto, MPP flag bearer aspirant. But let's get to that other story. Let me get to this one on page 26, and maybe we can make tracks and leave the Daily Graphic. So, Accra to host Africa Women Children Conference August the 2nd. You know me, I'm very passionate about women's affairs and children too, so definitely I would highlight a story like this. The maiden edition of the Africa Women and Children Conference, that is AfriWalk, a platform to address the impact of climate change on women and children, is set to take place on Wednesday, August the 2nd and Thursday, August the 3rd at the Kempinski Hotel here in Accra. The conference is an initiative of the Samira Empowerment and Humanitarian Projects under the auspices of the Office of the President, and it is on the theme, quote, amplifying the voices of women and children in climate action. And that is the big news there. Of course, there's also talk about COP28. It's interesting because I engaged the UK minister on COP26. I participated in the pre-event for COP27, and I'm waiting to see what the world will do ahead of COP28. On the back page, manhunt for Kumasi Boku bus attackers. Now, this is becoming rampant, not just, the Kintampo stretch, some parts of the northern belt, and now here we see that Kumasi Boku stretch as well. The police have launched a manhunt for some unknown gunmen who shot into a Kumasi Boku-bound bus at Wale Wale in the northeast region late Friday, killing one person and injuring many others. May the soul of that deceased person rest in peace. And hopefully we nab these people sowing the seed of terror on our roads. Northern region benefits from free medical care. That story as well. About 100,000 people in the northern region have benefited from a free health screening exercise organized by the Ghana Medical Relief, a USA-based non-profit organization in collaboration with the Institute for Promotion of Health, Education, and the Arts of Technology. All right, let's get into other stories now. The Daily Guide newspaper. Frida Prempeh takes over at Sanitation Ministry. Parliament repeals death penalty. Kufuor told me I'll go far. Oh, sir, bravo, Mia. I see. Okay. All right. Supreme Court throws out Quayson again, and Nigerian gets 10 years for cocaine. Can we sometimes just take out the context of nationality and just maybe put perpetrator, someone gets 10 years for cocaine. Can we not use anything apart from nationality? We're becoming a little too stereotypical. I think, yes, we attribute certain things, 419 and a few things. Ghanaians too, they do 419. Yeah. Some crowd, they advance, they are doing 4110. So sometimes the context of South African, Nigerian, Fulani or Fulbe, which is the proper term, we're becoming too stereotypical. It must always be, if it were a Ghanaian, will you say Ghanaian gets 10 years for cocaine? You would put something else there. So why are we so stereotypical? And yet we'll be talking about African unity. It starts from here, right here. We're so stereotypical. But let's get into the stories. We've already spoken about Frida Prempeh taking over the Sanitation Ministry. There's also that story about Parliament repealing the death penalty. We've already looked at that. Kufuor told me I would go far. Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has revealed that former President John Agyekum Kufuor once told him that he, quote, would go far. The Vice President, or I should say, since I'm quoting him, not reporting it, quote, will go far. Okay. Now, the vice president indicated that this was before the former president appointed him to the board of Ghana Telecom, probably reacting to claims that he is a novice in the ruling New Patriotic Party. Dr. Bawumia mentioned that he would not hide the fact that former President Kufuor was his political godfather. But truth be told, if you're considering some of the other stalwarts in the list of 10 who want to be flag bearer of the party, the vice president is a bit of a novice. Is it Dr. Kofi Konadu Apreku? Is it Kwabena Ejapong? I mean, I could list a number of them. Is it Alan Chemating? So he would be, and I'm saying this without any malice, he would be a newbie in many senses. I mean, when did former President Kufuor even come to power? 2000. If he was a godfather and was nurturing you, and if we know what the process was, obviously there were others way before. So, yes, you may not be a newbie or a novice, but compared to some of the others, you still came far down the road. Anyway, let's get into other stories, maybe some international stories. Greece faces new heat wave as wildfires rage, and that's been a thorny situation in that part of the world. And, there are certain places, Australia, Greece, at some point in France, Spain, if you follow, and that season and how they have to deal with raging wildfires, in California as well, in the United States. But there's Capitol rioter who beat officer with flag jailed. This is interesting. Now, an Arkansas man who used the pole of an American flag to batter a fallen police officer during the U.S. Capitol attack has received a 52-month jail term. Peter Francis Stager helped drag the officer down the steps of the Capitol and then, quote, forcibly and repeatedly struck him, say prosecutors. And for his effort, he gets 52 months in jail. We also have storms ravaged northern Italy as Sicily burns, and then Nigeria's suspended bank chief denies owning shotgun. Po. Anyway, we do have Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante back on the line, but this time via the phone. Doc, welcome back.
It's unfortunate that the network is happening this way, but there's always a way out. The way out is what we are doing now.
Definitely. That's the way out. So I don't know how much of what I have done that you followed, but let me just run these by you.
Yes.
Yao Nsako, like I was saying, a former executive vice president of Unilever, is saying basically this democratic experiment is a miracle that led to nowhere. He says our country's political landscape is a merry-go-round of miracles, but with very little performance to show. In the Daily Graphic, there's also the death penalty that has been scrapped. The maximal sentence now will be life imprisonment. And the president has appointed Frida Prempeh as sanitation minister. Quick take on any of these subjects before we move on?
Yes. But before we do, I just want to, touch on the Adisado College matter.
On which matter?
Adisado College incident.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that we have such a matter. I tried to watch the video. At first instance, it was so difficult for me.
Right.
I struggled before I watched because I'm a parent.
Yeah.
And it brings to the fore a number of issues. I'll look at them quickly so that we can touch on others.
Sure.
One is
and we have limited time, Doc, because you've been away for a while. So as quickly as possible.
Quickly. The issue of socialization has broken down in our homes and our schools. So the proper training as to what is fit for society, we have thrown them away. And that's the results we are seeing. All right. So you ask yourself, who are those protecting them in schools? As if it's a free for all. People, somebody filming and the rest of it. Who's defending the vulnerable, the needy in the school? And I think there's a problem there. Then another problem is the issue of what? GS, I'm not sure they have stiffer punishment for such behavior. I think that they should take a second look so that people don't see it as fun. And then because this practice has been with us since time immemorial,
Right.
and continue to gain prominence. So I think they have to strengthen the effort there. And the last of the issue is the effect of globalization. You see, and you can link it to what issue of what wrestling, all right, where somebody is grabbed and then, he slams something at him and all that, I'm not saying that, I'm not condemning the profession, but sometimes we children things and then they want to practice. Even though when you watch some of these things, they tell you that don't practice in school anyway. But exactly what we are seeing. I'm happy that the legal processes is taking its course.
Right.
And is going to serve as deterrent for the rest of.
Very quickly, do you agree with those who say that on the back of this, the boarding system should be scrapped? I've seen people suggest that. I feel that is a stretch.
No. If your child gets drowned, are you saying that you are not going to drink water again? No. But we have to strengthen the institutions within the boarding system. It's a good thing. And we continue to maintain it.
All right.
On the issue of the, the merry-go-round thing about the democracy, the gentleman couldn't have said it better, right? We have a democracy that is supposed to, give us all the dividends that we require. But politicians have hijacked it. And we, the citizens, have also been adamant in dealing with them the way it ought to be. We have glorified them time and again to let them know that what they are doing is something we endorse and as if they are doing us a favor. If we change that attitude and look at it critically, that our democracy must deliver the public good and that whoever occupies a position is there on our behalf. Once we get that tutorial right, set firm in our minds, we'll be able to take leaders on for their actions and inactions. Otherwise, we are going to struggle through this democracy. But I am very, very optimistic that at the end of the day, whatever happens, democracy will reign.
Well, there are those who suggest that we're not practicing a real democracy. If you go to India, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the United States, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, democracy is practiced in different ways. Even some would tell you that even in China, there are some spots of democracy, and they will tell you they have the voting system and all of that. But in Ghana, some have posited that what we practice is democracy rather than democracy, which should be governance of the people, by the people, for the people. The very things you taught us in political science class. But here, I don't know. Anyway, on the back page, I'll give you a chance to react to that. Zambia's presser cut short over sex allegations. Zambia's new conference to preview today's World Cup match against Spain was ended early due to persistent questions about an investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct against the team's coach, Bruce Mwape. There's also, I didn't know anything about football. Ilkay Gundogan has told ESPN, quote, he didn't know anything about football before working with Pep Guardiola. All right. Would you like to react to that comment before we go to the final batch of papers?
We will touch the scandal in soccer. But I think when you have institutions, they are able to deal with these things head on.
Right. President appoints Frida Prempeh to replace Cecilia Dapa. That's the final newspaper now. Top of police officials, investigators visit Adisado College as assault investigations begin. Convener of Individual Bondholders Forum, Senor Jose, resigns. And then anti-corruption measures not yielding results. That's according to Dr. Ankra. The death penalty has also been repealed. Let me quickly go to page 10 and do that story. There's also police submit docket to AG as OSP expands scope of investigations. It has to do with Cecilia Dapa. But on page 10, and this is how we wrap. I'll just do another story from the Ghanaian publisher and then we'll wrap. Economist Dr. Sam Ankra has called for a more transparent and ethical system of governance to build a more equitable and just society. A society where if you find maybe $1 million in a minister's home, it is very easy to find another million in an ordinary person's home. I'm just saying, I'm not being, but how many people in Ghana throughout their lives would even sniff anything close to $1 million? Just saying. Now, his call comes in the wake of a huge stash of cash set to be stolen from the home of former Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Abnadapa. Dr. Ankrah lays into the deep-rooted failures within Ghana's governmental structures that is prompting a wave of concern and condemnation. And you really want to wait for me on Friday, because I'm going to go hard on this Cecilia Dapa issue. Among others, Ghanaians, we're suffering and we're keeping quiet. You know, things don't change like that. Tanzanian grape farmer rejoices as local winery plans to tap Chinese market. Okay, so I would like you to focus on what Dr. Ankrah says. And then the Ghanaian publisher, there is also cabinet approves teaching hospital for Sunyani. And then there is NDC slams Judicial Council over Domahene. I want you to react to this one on page 7. So, it's supposed to be on page 7. Now, where's the story? It was supposed to be on page 7. Anyway, they've slammed the Chief Justice, and they have said that what is happening. So it actually is on page 3. The opposition NDC has condemned what it describes as the harassment and victimization of the Domahene Osajefo Osiadeyo Ajimabedu II by the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government and the Judicial Council. According to the party, the attempt by the Judicial Council to victimize the Domahene over his recent comments is totally unacceptable. You know the comments, the one to do with Jachi Kwesen. That's how we wrap. Quick thoughts and we're gone.
Yeah, I will start with Dr. Ankrah's thing. Yeah, that we should build an economic system that is transparent to be able to provide us with our needs. Yeah, it is true. But all that we need in this country, if we want to really deal with corruption and all that, we need institutions that are strong. If we are talking about this Cecilia Dapa's issue, the real issue is that do we have institutions that check these things? That you can take money and nobody will know how much you are taking and what. If you have, you go to established system. As soon as money moves from one person to the other, one bank to the other, the system will trigger or put information through for somebody to be alert that, yes, there is this thing going on so that you can take action. What we have here, we have institutions, but they don't work. If we strengthen the institution, they will work to perfection. Then the issue of, the Domahene's issue. It's a very controversial one and all that. And I'm trying to understand what is wrong here. But me not being a lawyer, I find it difficult to put a finger on the issue. So I want you to give me some time and reflect on them. It's a difficult thing because I don't know the bounds that if somebody, can people comment on things like this, especially when they are judges and all that. I don't know what the code of ethics about judges is about on this matter. So spare me. But we can look at I think you mentioned a third one, if you can just...
so you've spoken about the Domahene's own, and I also brought up Dr. Ankrah's own. I think those were the two main ones that I highlighted.
Yes, I dealt with Ankrah's one. Yeah.
All right. Well,
and then the sub-region something. The teaching hospital in Sunyani.
Oh, okay, right.
I think it's a good thing. We need to spread these schools, these hospitals, so that they can provide service for our people. If you look at that part of Ghana, it's long overdue that that place should also have a teaching hospital, so that at the end of the day, people don't travel long distances for medical services and then training and all that. Once we have some what they're going to have reason, it will also come to augment what we have in the system.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, for making the time to join us this morning. It was quite a hurdle with the internet, patchy internet, but thank you for still staying with us. We're grateful. All right. And that's how we cap off the news review brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Just make your way to any of their branches. Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji State Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa and Esiaman Zima. Their call lines 0244-867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports Ghana 4 is up next. Stay